Ah, yeah, that's good. Okay.
Good. Can we edit that to the end of the video? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, take it away, Asim.
Awesome. So before I begin today, I'd just like to ask a very quick question to the audience. If you can put your hands up if you've ever been so frightened in your life, so scared that a little bit of pee has come out. Okay, keep your hands up. Okay, thank you. You can put your hands down now. And thank you all for being so honest with me today. That was about 50% of the audience. And hopefully by the end of this talk, I will increase that number a little bit. Because today we're going to talk about how to hack an Angular application, or hacking in general. My name is Asim Hussain. You can find me on Twitter @Joake, hint, hint. I blog about Angular and JavaScript on my site, codecraft.tv, and I'm also a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft. So I work kind of representing the Azure team, which is a word you're probably going to hear a few times during this talk, because one of the things I think Azure's pretty good at is security. But before we begin, just to clear up a few different things. What I'm gonna... I lost my notes. So Philip today talked to you about security. He taught you something. And my goal isn't really to teach you anything in this talk. You might accidentally learn a few things, but my goal is just to get you to pee yourself. And I'm not a security expert at all. I'm a developer. I'm a developer who one day got hacked very, very badly. So I'm kind of somebody who never cared anything at all about security and was brought up a level. And if that's you in the audience right now, then this talk is for you. So again, that's why I want to start the basics. Just want to explain a few key words just for everybody. So what is a vulnerability? A vulnerability is a hole in your security. So for instance, not setting up a firewall is just a vulnerability. An exploit is either a piece of code or just even some manual steps that you run in order to take advantage of a vulnerability to do bad things, to do an exploit. Everybody understand? Cool. We want to talk today about hacking through three different stories, three different real-life hacking stories. I'm going to explain how they did it, and hopefully through that process you will be scared. So the first story is this one. Does anybody know this company? No? No. Bitbucket, is that what we use? What we say? So this is a story. This is a story of GitHub has a bug bounty, which, if you don't know, a bug bounty is a prize that they give out to security experts if they identify a vulnerability or an exploit and let them know about it, give them an opportunity to fix it in private before telling the world. So Orange Sai, this is not my story, this is Orange Sai, is a security expert in Taiwan. Gave a really great talk at Black Hack Con this year about how he hacked GitHub. And I just want to share this first story with you, but it's not my story, it's his, so please go follow him on Twitter or something. So, and one of the reasons I really love this story is that it's about how it's like a heist movie. But I'll let you experience it as we go along. So GitHub, how it works. So we all know webhooks in GitHub? Yeah? Okay. So with webhooks, it's quite simple. You can set it up so when you do a git push, it will do a post to some endpoint. So in this example, it'll do a post to example.com. Pretty straightforward, right? But what if instead of example.com, you're localhost? Yeah? What would happen here? Well, then when you do the git push, it will do a post. And remember, it's not just localhost, it's localhost and a port. You can now then do a HTTP post request to any process on that server behind the firewall. But, sorry, this is GitHub. This is a common issue. It's an injection attack, right? This is untrusted input, a user-defined input. So this is the #1 issue number one vulnerability out there. So, of course, they knew about this. And they blacklisted localhost. But they forgot about 0. So on some Linux servers, 0 can resolve to localhost as well. So now Orange is in. What can Orange do with this? Well, turns out not a lot on its own. So I'm going to play a game. Someone's going to tell me what process that port is. Must be one person. Take a guess. Okay, I'm going to drink this water anyway. It's Elasticsearch. Elasticsearch. So if you do a post request to _shutdown on this port, you shut down Elasticsearch on your server. So there you go. Vulnerability and exploit number 1. The ability to shut down Elasticsearch on your server. Not a really huge denial of service attack, I've got to admit, but something. So Orange went on more of a hunt and found something else. I need to warn you right now. I'm about to show you some Python code. Okay? I'm sorry. Here you go. But don't worry, I'll explain it to you step by step. So this is, he found this. This is an endpoint in Python that will be called on a post request. It's something called Graphite. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like a charting library, real-time charting library. And so Orange, well, obviously it's open source, so found Graphite on GitHub, so used GitHub to hack GitHub. But anyway, the code is this. So basically, gets the URL from the query parameters, gets the URL, the path, and then does a GET request to that URL. Yeah? Wow. What have I done here? What has he done here? Not much, really. So if you compose this webhook URL, the whole thing is the webhook URL. The whole thing gets posted to send email. And then that takes the red URL and does a GET request. So all we've done right now, 2 small vulnerabilities, convert a post into a GET. A post into a GET. Huge, right? No, not really. But the key thing is this. It used something called the HTTP connection library to make the GET request. And in some versions of Python, some very recent versions of Python, that had a known vulnerability. A vulnerability called the carriage return line feed injection attack. So carriage return line feed, so carriage return, /R is new line on Windows. And \n is new line everywhere else. So both of them together is a cross-platform way of doing line endings. And if you convert that to hex, it's ODOA. I should not have put this in the center of my screen, but it is there. ODOA. So now, what would happen if you did a GET request to this? In fact, what is a GET request? In fact, what is HTTP? Right? I mean, we've probably all seen this somewhere. We've done a curl request. We've seen this. What is this? We've seen this printed on our screen. What is it? What is HTTP? HTTP is just a series of strings sent over a TCP connection, each string ending in carriage return line feed. We mark the end of a HTTP message by sending 2 carriage return line feeds at a time. That's all that HTTP request is. So what happened with the HTTP connection library is it converted the ODOA into new lines. So now, if you're sending this message to another HTTP server, it's going to get the first line. It's going to go, yeah, I get that. That's fine. Just GET request. It's then going to get hello. I'm going to go, what is this? This is not HTTP. I don't know. 400. I forgot the error message. 400 or something. It's going to send it back. So, okay, now we've got a way of sending a malformed HTTP message to a HTTP server. Not a biggie, right? But what if you sent this? Let's play the port game again. Can somebody guess the process? 11211? No guesses? Memcache. Okay, Memcache is a caching solution. We all use it, trust me. So what happens if you send a GET request here? That's going to get converted into this. So so now this, we're going to use HTTP connection library to send this HTTP message to Memcache, which doesn't understand HTTP. What's it going to do? It's going to get the first line. Remember, it's just HTTP is just strings sent over TCP ending in new line. So it's going to get that, and it's going to go, I don't know what this is. Forget it. It's then going to get sent this, and it's going to go, oh yeah, I know what this is. I understand. This is Memcache protocol. It's going to set data on the key. It's a key value store. And then it's going to get sent the next line. I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is. End of story. What this is something called protocol smuggling. I think it's fascinating. It's the ability within one protocol to send another protocol. So within the HTTP protocol, we're now sending the Memcache protocol because they're both just TCP IP. That's it. But what's the big deal? Because as developers, we all really like to store stuff in Memcache when we can because it makes websites faster. But usually, we use libraries to do it. We'll usually use something which takes some part of our code, serializes it into a string. We store that in Memcache. We deserialize it. We reconstruct some object or something. We call a function, and we're happy. But I've just showed you how we can control what's in Memcache. So now you serialize your object. You deserialize your object. You call a function based off it, but not calling your function. You're calling my function. Then started looking at the keys. This is orange still. Started looking at the keys in Memcache. Well, what is GitHub using? They used a library. So when you serialize some stuff, it often uses the name of the class as a key, as part of the key. So they found from looking at the keys that they're using this class. Now notice the word in red. Yeah? I've done this. You know, they found a vulnerability in instance variable proxy. The next version, they said, okay, if you want to use instance variable proxy, you need to rewrite your code to type new deprecated instance variable proxy. You can't pretend that you didn't know this was happening. As a developer, you have to code that in, right? So that's what they do. They reached a deadline, they coded it in. So they were using a class called deprecated instance variable proxy. Now, why was it deprecated? Because instance variable proxy had a known vulnerability. You're going to hear me say those words again. A known vulnerability that when you deserialized an instance of instance variable proxy, it would execute a command on the server. That's it. Just the act of deserialization executed a command on the server. So this is unfortunately really, I want to jump down for a second. Sorry. So this is the full URL that you're seeing here. So the first one, remember this? Remember that innocent little post message at the start? And then we got converted into a little bit of a get. And then this is the Memcache protocol. This is data that's storing in Memcache. And actually this thing here, anything you stick between this character and this character, is the actual command that you can execute on the server. So that can be any Unix command there. So this is orange, just proving that he did it. So he made a little video. GitHub Enterprise. Goes to repo. Adds a webhook. It's a long webhook, so runs a script. Hi. Runs a script to get the actual URL to paste in. And then this is just a command it's typing in so you can see what commands get run on the server. And to execute, to trigger this exploit, all you've got to do is actually do a search, any search. That search requests data from Memcache, deserializes that object, and ran the ID command on the server. Yeah? Does anybody need the toilet? Or we're good? Okay, so what do I think of this? I think big exploits, what you take away from this is big exploits are made from smaller exploits. Each one of those you might have just chosen to ignore if you saw that in your code, right? But chained together, you can do some pretty scary things. So it might look like Angular. You might look like you might look at some change logs or see some little security alert on one of your dependent libraries and go, nah, doesn't look that big. It's a small XSS attack or something. Won't bother. It's a lot of effort. It's 5 p.m. on a Friday. No. What should scare you right now is how you can chain them together to do something pretty big. No? Not scared? Nah, maybe the next one. So who heard of the Equifax hack this year? Okay, good few people. So it's considered the largest hack in history. In history, yeah? 200 million people's records were affected. My records were affected. I had data with Equifax. It's $1 billion company. It's 10,000 employees. It's not a small company. It's been around for 100 years, I found out, actually. And I'm going to explain kind of what happened. But before I do that, just a little bit more in terms of terminology. So we mentioned vulnerability and exploit. Who's heard of zero-day exploits? Okay, good. So a zero-day exploit is one that no one knows about yet. It's a secret. But once a vulnerability becomes known, then the companies or the maintainers will usually release a patch. So the zero-day vulnerability it's not a zero-day anymore, okay, because it's known, right? It might be 1 day, 2 days, 30 days, whatever. And basically the value of that exploit goes down over time as more and more people apply that patch, yeah? So how hard do you think it would be to get hold of a zero-day exploit? It's pretty hard, actually. Now, you need to be the right people. You need to roll in the right circles. There was a study done this year, I think, that they analyzed, it's hard to tell, but they analyzed a whole load of tangential data, and it seemed to indicate that a zero-day exploit sells for up to $250,000 US, a good one. And you actually get paid in installments for as long as the exploit remains secret. But if that's a zero-day exploit, how hard do you think it would be to get hold of a 6-month exploit, one that's been in the public domain for 6 months? It's not hard, right? It's really easy. In fact, you could just Google it. There's loads of databases out there. This is a famous one, ExploitDB. So I type PHP because it's fun. Type search and scroll down. These are all the vulnerabilities and exploits that are known for PHP. It's still 2017, by the way, on the left-hand side. And then you can just click in and basically just follow instructions. I just clicked a random one here. So you can click in and just follow the instructions that are on the page to just attack. But we're all developers in this room, right? So how many of you have spent a day writing a script for something which probably you could have done manually in 2 minutes? All the time. All the time. All the time. So why do we think that our hackers and attackers won't do the same thing? And of course they do. There's so many tools out there. This is one. This is used by a lot of security experts. It's called Metasploit. Ooh, quality's pretty poor. But basically, you can just point at a website. It will scan it. It will tell you the vulnerabilities it thinks its websites have. It then has plugins, which you can then call that will automatically attack that site for you. So, given that, did Equifax get hacked by a zero-day exploit? No. They got hacked through a known vulnerability of their web framework that had already been fixed for 2 months. all they had to do to protect themselves was install an update. That's it. Just install an update. Now, you might laugh, but this is actually a lot more common than you think. This is a study from 2016 from Snike, like a JavaScript node security firm. And they found that 12 of the top 50 data breaches were through known vulnerabilities. So that's 25%, about 25% of all data breaches were from known vulnerabilities. They did another one this year, recently actually, and they found that 77% of the 433,000 sites they looked at used vulnerable JavaScript libraries. And in fact, if you look at the Angular JS and Angular documentation, the very first item in each document is use the latest Angular JS possible. Keep current with the latest Angular library releases. So who here, put your hands up, put your hands up if you're running the latest Angular library. Okay? Put your hands up if you're not running the latest Angular library. That's not everybody. So unless 50% of this room is React developers, some people aren't telling me the truth. Now, I actually talk about migration a lot, so a lot of my other talks that I've spoken about this year have been on AngularJS migration. And it's quite interesting, actually, because I usually get a question afterwards, which is how do I convince my management to migrate from AngularJS to Angular? How do I convince them, right? And we're still on Angular 1.2, AngularJS 1.2. Well, this is a great reason. Next time you get asked, you just say, Equifax. That's it. So what are some things you can do? I lied. I'm going to give you some solutions. What are some things you can do? Well, if you use GitHub, they launched this a couple of weeks ago now, so I don't know if you've seen this yet. If you go to Insights, and then you see a tab called Dependency Graph, this always used to be there, and this scans your package JSON for all your dependencies, and then it now has the ability, it connects to one of those databases, and it actually tells you if you're using a version of a dependent package which has a known vulnerability, which usually means it's got a patched version to fix it, so go fix it. There's another thing that you can use tools like NSP. So NSP is from Node Security IO. So it's a free tool. You can just use it locally, NSP check, and it will do a similar thing. It will scan your package JSON and tell you, are you using any vulnerable libraries? And if you use Snike, Snike is a more online server which does the same thing. So yeah, it's hopefully what you can get from this is pretty easy to hack someone through a known vulnerability. And evidence seems to suggest that a lot of us are using libraries with known vulnerabilities. 75% of this room apparently are using libraries with known vulnerabilities. So basically, make sure you update, because no one wants to be that guy or person who's sitting in front of their CEO after they've had an Equifax-style hack saying, well, I couldn't be bothered to update. Right? So, anybody else scared now? No? Oh, this is just a quick aside. So this is OWASP. Who's heard of OWASP? Yeah, quite a few people. So OWASP is like a top 10 list of the known vulnerability, or the most vulnerable things out there, from something called the Open Web Application Security Public. It's pretty famous. It's had an old top 10 list, which was out in 2013, but they just updated it a few weeks ago to new top 2017. And I thought it was quite interesting because the new A8 is insecure deserialization, which was the GitHub talk. And also that's injection as well. I just spoke about known vulnerabilities, which is always there in A9. And I like A10 because it's talking about insufficient logging and monitoring. Because I work in Azure. I told you that, right? So one of the things we've got is called the Azure Security Center. It's kind of like NSP, but it's like a linter for your architecture. It's pretty cool. And we also do this thing where it's really hard to alert and get good logging and monitoring on your security. So we basically trained an AI to figure a path through all the alerts and alert you just on the path. So when you get alerted, you can then trace back down through to find out exactly how you got hacked. So it's pretty cool. Oh, might be running over. Story number 3, last story. Who can tell me what this code does? He gets a cookie. Oh, sorry, a token. So yeah, gives you in a base 64. Okay. What does the rest of this code do? Well, I'll tell you. I seem to be taking those environment variables and then posting them to my server. Who here stores like secret stuff in their environment variables in their production applications? Yeah? Yeah? For the rest of you, but I'd say half of you are probably hard coding them in your scripts, and the other half are probably using the Azure Key Vault. But what if I told you that I could make you run this code in your application? Do you believe me? No? So yeah, basically, what is this code? If you look at it, if you look carefully, it's actually a setup script of an NPM module. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, okay, Asim, okay, if I installed your NPM module, yeah, I'd probably be giving you all of my environment variables. So why would I install your NPM module? Did anybody see this tweet a couple of months ago? No? So Kent Dodds has a package called crossenv on NPM. And somebody discovered that somebody had actually seemed to have hacked crossenv and added this piece of code to the setup script. But what had really happened was this. Okay, so cross-env is the real one. Crossenv without the hyphen was the fake one. That's it. Did exactly the same thing as crossenv, except it just posted your environment variables to the person called Hacktask server. It's called typo squatting, and it's actually it's been happening for years. It happens in other languages. It's happening for a long time, right? But I suppose it's a particularly famous one. And we'll do it. A number of times I sit there and I'm trying to type something from NPM, and I can't remember if it's got hyphens or non-hyphens. So maybe I'll try non-hyphens to begin with, and then, oh yeah, it works. So great, right? All the time. But when you're doing npm install, what are you doing? You're giving somebody you've never met in your entire life, maybe never met in your entire life, the ability to run code as if it was you. Behind your firewall, behind everything. Crazy, right? So I think we're a little bit too trusting, right? A little bit too trusting. When I found about this issue, it really affected me. I was taken aback for a while because I didn't even think about it. And I thought for a long time, why am I being so affected by this? And I realized it's because it's open source. If I had a secret crossenv version that was closed source, that I'd compiled, that was 20 times faster, and I said, go, use this version. Go on, trust me, it's good, it's good, it's good. You wouldn't touch it. But because it was open source, we thought, okay, we can trust it. There's multiple eyes on it. Somebody must have found it out. But that package was up for 2 weeks before it was discovered. The real version gets downloaded over 1 million times a month, so it was out for a while. So what did they do? So basically, this is one of the reasons that we should use scoped or namespaced packages. Because you can't, if other people can't publish to Angular, only Angular team can publish to Angular, right? So you can't be typo squatted on. But maybe you got typos, maybe you're a victim of this, and if you look at the notes from the slides afterwards, there's various links to find out if you've accidentally installed one of these packages on your machine. But that's it. I hope you'll have a break now, so there will definitely be time to go to the toilet, which I'm sure you'll need to do. But I'm just to summarize, what's the takeaway? The takeaway is to update all the things. There's no such thing as small vulnerability. They can all be chained together into really interesting exploits, so go fix them. And did the NPM issue scare anybody? No? I don't really have a solution for that, so here's a unicorn. So if you want, again, I'll be tweeting out these slides to Joy. So follow me, and I'll be tweeting out the slides. Thank you very much. Follow me.